Hello everyone. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then subscribe to this channel. The tradition of a melodic and social symbol, John Lennon, brought into the world on October 9, 1940, in Liverpool, Britain, was a performer, lyricist, and harmony dissident whose effect on music and culture is both significant and persevering. As a prime supporter of the Beatles and an independent craftsman, Lennon's commitments to music and his candid backing for harmony have done great things. His life, portrayed by inventiveness, contention, and a tenacious journey for social change, stays a subject of interest and deference. This article investigates the life and tradition of John Lennon, looking at his initial years, his experience with the Beatles, his performance profession, and his effect on music and culture. Early life and the Beatles. John Lennon was brought into the world to Julia and Alfred Lennon in the common neighbourhood of Wavertree, Liverpool. His folks' upset marriage and possible partition fundamentally affected his initial life. Raised principally by his auntie Mimi, Lennon fostered an adoration for music early on, impacted by the different hints of rock and roll and mood and blues that were famous in post-war England. In 1957, Lennon framed a band with individual youngsters Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and drummer Pete Best, which in the long run developed into the Beatles. The gathering's initial years were spent playing in Liverpool and Hamburg, sharpening their art and fostering a one-of-a-kind sound that would before long enthrall the world. The Beatles' advancement came in 1963 with the arrival of Kindly Please Me, which immediately settled them as a significant power in well-known music. Lennon, alongside McCartney, became one of the most productive songwriting organizations ever, delivering a progression of noteworthy collections that characterized the 1960s and reshaped the music business. The Beatles' peculiarity. The Beatles' ascent to global acclaim, frequently alluded to as Beatlemania, was driven by their imaginative way to deal with music and their charming characters. Lennon's mind, insight, and unmistakable voice were basic to the band's prosperity. Tunes, for example, Help, Yesterday, and A Hard Day's Evening, exhibited Lennon's capacity to mix powerful verses with important songs, adding to the gathering's worldwide allure. Lennon's commitments to the Beatles reached out past songwriting and execution. His readiness to try different things with various melodic styles, and his advantage in investigating new imaginative roads, assumed a critical part in the band's development. Collections like Elastic Soul, Pistol, and Strength Pepper's Desolate Hearts Club Band denoted a takeoff from traditional popular music, consolidating components of psychedelia, old-style music, and vanguard methods. In spite of their prosperity, inward strains inside the Beatles started to surface in the last part of the 1960s. The tensions of acclaim, varying imaginative dreams, and private matters prompted stressed connections among the musicians. Lennon's relationship with Yoko Ono, a vanguard craftsman and his future spouse, further exacerbated these pressures. The Beatles formally disbanded in 1970, denoting the conclusion of an important time period and the start of another section in Lennon's life. Solo profession and activism. Following the separation of the Beatles, John Lennon left on a performance profession that would set his status as a social symbol. His introduction solo collection, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band 1970, was a crude and contemplative work that investigated topics of individual torment, estrangement, and self-disclosure. The collection's obvious confession booth style denoted a takeoff from the more cleaned sound of the Beatles and displayed Lennon's eagerness to face his own weaknesses. Lennon's political activism turned out to be progressively unmistakable during his performance profession. He and Yoko Ono utilized their foundation to advocate for harmony and civil rights, organizing high-profile fights and exhibitions. The couple's Bed-ins for Harmony, held in Amsterdam and Montreal in 1969, were emblematic demonstrations of dissent against the Vietnam War and endeavors to advance world harmony. Their tune, Allow Harmony an Opportunity, turned into a song of devotion for the counter-conflict development and mirrored Lennon's obligation to social change. In 1971, Lennon delivered Envision, a collection that would become quite possibly of his most notorious work. The title track, with its confident and hopeful verses, has been embraced as an all-inclusive song of praise for harmony and solidarity. The collection's prosperity reaffirmed Lennon's place as a main voice in famous music and activism. Individual battles and return to music. The 1970s were set apart by private battles for Lennon. His wild connection with Yoko Ono, fights with substance misuse, and fights in court with the US government, which looked to oust him on grounds of his enemy of war activism, added to the difficulties he confronted. In 1975, Lennon took a break from the music business to zero in on his everyday life and bring up his child, Sean, who was brought into the world in 1975. Following a 5-year break, Lennon got back to music with the collection Twofold Dream, 1980, a coordinated effort with Ono. The collection, which includes a blend of intelligent and confident melodies, was generally welcomed and denoted a critical rebound for Lennon. The track, Beginning Once Again, a confident reflection on fresh starts, resounded with fans and pundits the same. Lamentable demise and heritage. On December 8, 1980, John Lennon's life was unfortunately stopped when he was shot and killed external his apartment complex, the Dakota, in New York City. The insight about his passing stunned the world and prompted a generous flood of distress from fans and individual artists. Lennon's homicide was an overwhelming misfortune to the music local area and to the people who respected his backing for harmony and civil rights. Lennon's passing solidified his status as a social and melodic symbol. His commitments to music, his straightforward activism, and his persevering through impact keep on being praised. His inheritance is safeguarded through his broad assemblage of work, including his creative collections, critical exhibitions, and strong messages of harmony and love. In acknowledgement of his commitments to music and culture, John Lennon has been regarded with various recognitions and grants. He was post-mortem enlisted into the wild lobby of popularity as an independent craftsman in 1994 and stays a getting-through image of creative development and social activism. John Lennon's life and profession mirror the intricacies of both a progressive man craftsman and an enthusiastic promoter for change. His commitments to music, his particular voice, and his obligation to civil rights lastingly affect the world. Mainstream society. As an independent craftsman and lobbyist, he kept on testing shows and move others with his messages of harmony and love. Lennon's inheritance perseveres through his music, his activism, and the persevering through impact he has had on ages of craftsmen and fans. His life, however unfortunately cut off, stays a demonstration of the force of inventiveness and the significance of involving one's voice to advocate for a superior world. John Lennon's commitments to workmanship and culture keep on reverberating, guaranteeing that his effect will be felt long into the future. Thank you for watching.